I see a pattern which you can also contribute to. So how I see the point that is raised by you in terms of how our upbringing is always, there is so much of diversity that you grow as a different person and you can learn from multiple perspectives. But what I also see that even within that chaos, probably there is an order, which I think what he's saying that is that order still there, or it's too volatile to even understand what's going on, right? These are two different perspectives from both of you that I get, and they probably coexist together, right? And that makes it even more complex than it is. Let's go to Mohan.
Yeah, again, I agree with the same. It's a multipolar world, and plus now we see lots of walls coming up. But again, what's happening is whether we are moving into a direction where this is giving an opportunity for certain set of people. Coming to technology, as Shakir said, AI and many interruptions have come. I come from an oil and gas background where I see engineering centers emerging in India, but projects are executed across the world. There, the local population is trained to execute the projects, but the backbone is somewhere. The engineering center is happening somewhere. So ultimately, who holds the key? Whether technology will disrupt and get that engineering also to across the world, or whether that engineering hub will be somewhere. So technology plays a major role because of the advent of online platforms and how the technology can be easily transferred. Then again, there is another major question which comes up, like the global, the regional firewalls which has to come with technology. How we are going to do that? So there are many challenges which are emerging, but again, there are opportunities also coming equally. Like we see, Dubai has grown. We have, I think it's a melting pot here. Many things are happening in Dubai. Why? Because I think we are catering to many sectors from Dubai now. It's a boom in Dubai, what's happening. So that's catering to the multipolar world.
1.5. Sorry, Gaurav.
So, okay, just to add what Mr. Mahajan said, like with this kind of multipolarity, everybody is feeling insecure or everybody is trying to protect their own interests. And that is how this whole game of power and politics is, getting more and more, very evident. So, but this also gives, for example, what president of biggest, most powerful country in the world, the way today he is behaving, it is also giving a lot of, birth to a lot of new equations like BRICS. They are planning to bring in their own currency, and so that they don't want to depend on a. Once upon a time, that was the very powerful. They don't want to depend on that particular currency. So like that, new equations are emerging. Like sometime back, India was tilting towards USA, but now suddenly we are getting closer to China. Russia has been always a friend to India. So all this, everybody, because whether someone is there in power for some time or not, but everybody wants to protect their own interest. And it is giving, sometimes I feel what is happening? Where are we heading? Because it is also actually giving, that lot of hatred is getting created. Like walls, someone said walls are getting built in within countries, within cultures, between races and all. So suddenly, 3-4 years back, 5 years back, everything was normal. There was no war. People were free to move. Everything was happening smoothly, as if, okay, we are moving towards more and more liberal world. And suddenly we are again going back to maybe that, old era, that sort. So maybe leadership, all the leaders, top leaders of all the countries, they should think about it, because it is no more about their own country, but it is actually something to do with whole mankind.
Yes.
So this
Thank
is
you. And sorry, before I come to you, I think we are already moving to my next question. So I'll put it out there. So as we listen to your comments, we have already had comments from a couple of you about what kind of leadership is required in such a situation when it is a multipolar world. And particularly when you don't know where it is going to stabilize, what is going to happen. It's volatile and the equations, power dynamics is changing. from a particular lens of global order, that's a different kind of problem. But if we look at it within the organization, when we are trying to operate a business, like Abhinav said, how do we put in systems and processes is something that becomes a challenge as well. So my next question is, what kind of a leadership style works when we are operating in such a world, and we are operating through multiple power centers? Or if you have seen such a moment wherein you have seen that this is what works, we'd be happy to listen to a particular instance, or else a general comment on what kind of leadership would be helpful and what kind of leadership we should develop.
I was just commenting on
Yes.
that, not in that lines, especially what Gaurav, Mr. Mahajan was saying. And this is not contextual, but people, Indians especially, who grew up in big cities, we kind of evolved from that stage. Apart from our family upbringings, you had people from all religions. In a class, you would have people probably speak 6 different languages. So we grow up so we experienced as Indian leaders from our very outset in school, multipolar, bipolar, unipolar. You evolved, you grew up in that environment. And to your questions, extremely proud to be an Indian, that we have Indian CEOs across the world. And when I started my career as a military pilot, we were at that time constrained with aircrafts buying from a certain country. So availability of spare parts was always a big challenge. Today, I represent a company where we manufacture high-end robot and robotic solutions. So to the changing scenario, as you said at the beginning, the power centers have changed. So there was some dominance of certain countries in products, specializers, etc. But what has created these roadblocks which has come, and since, again, to what Mahajan has said, that from the very childhood, we have learned to adapt quickly to a situation. I still remember I was coming from, we were in school when Mrs. Indira Gandhi was assassinated. There was no school bus and we had to walk home. Till that time, my parents would bring me to school. But that day, alone, I had to walk back to home. So I think we grew up in an environment where adaptability, we all realize that, today people talk about, change is constant in lives. Nobody told us. We've seen the changes happening in lives from the very outset go. So in this evolving leadership, I've seen in the military how senior leaders, we had to keep the aircraft serviceable. So people found creative solution. And I've seen leadership from the word go, from, taking parts from an aircraft which was on a standby mode to get something, having engineers evolve, create something in-house to make it work. And I see it today with the roadblocks, with the changing dynamic in geopolitics. If you're depending on one country for one part, you found alternate. And now the alternative seems to be better, because that time you never wanted to, because you're content. You're in a cocoon and Mr. Mahajan supplies me something, Gaurav supplies, why do I have to go to the other parties? But today, you suddenly push me out of my comfort zone, and this is probably the best thing which has happened, and change is constant. But coming out of your comfort zone, and that is, I think, the very facet of leadership, that you come out of the comfort zone, but how do you make your team comfortable in that scenario? You will evolve, but along with you, your team also has to evolve. Your objective doesn't change. So I think it's a very interesting juncture where we are, and it's a great learning. We all learn today, with as much of gray hairs or less gray hairs, the learning is constant. And I think inherently Indians have it in the DNA to quickly get into the bandwagon and run faster.
Great, thank you. That's a great point. And sometimes chaos is also an opportunity.
Absolutely.
And if you are already grown up and that is in the DNA, that you pick up on that opportunity. That's a very good point. So coming out of the comfort zone is something that is the situation bringing. And there are a couple of points earlier that has already been talked about, say, for example, developing agility as a leader and how leaders could be agile. And I'll be happy to listen any more points about what kind of leadership.
Some words were coming to my mind. Agile, definitely one. But I also think intuitive, because, nothing is defined. it needs a lot of ability to sense what might happen. So agility for sure, because it's not an environment in which you can be slow. So agile, intuitive. I agree with creative. The solutioning is not straightforward. Just like you have to be able to assess what might happen and what might come at you. You also have to respond with creativity. But another critical adjective that comes to mind is calm. It's very important, I think, in situations like these to remain calm, not be reactive, and not jump the board, jump the gun. A lot of times, just being steady and stable makes you handle things better. And since there's been a lot of reference, and we are all thumping our chest and patting our own back, saying we Indians are good at it, and I agree wholeheartedly. I think some of these qualities are actually cultural to us as Indians. The intuitiveness, the creativity, but I think it's also that karmic thing of okay, it will happen. You remain calm and
just to add,
Sorry.
Yeah, just to add, you talked about what kind of leadership qualities. I think sympathy. Sympathetic leader is required in this era. So, very important quality. And secondly, emotional intelligence. Irrespective of era, that is going to stay, that should be there, and that becomes more relevant in today's world, because everyone is trying to push their agenda forward. So
see, I think today skills and technical proficiency, which were things which were looked at in the past, are a given, right? They become table stakes, right?
Yes.
That's right. I think clearly one of the things, we've talked about chaos, we've talked about agility. I think that is clearly there. Creative solutioning, no question. I think the one other thing which is extremely important to define leadership is communication. A leader has to constantly communicate, because things are changing so fast, right? Is this my strategy today? Is that my strategy today? Tariffs happen. How do I change? Something else happen. Competition comes up. How do I change? Then it's a merger acquisition things. What happens? Clear, consistent, constant communication, I think, is going to define leadership. And leaders who can do that in an open and transparent manner and effectively are the ones who go to lead.
Great. That's a great point.
Apart from communication, one more point is collaboration and thinking out of the box. Like we had this challenge last year, there was a total shortage of semiconductors. And out of the way, my CEO came out with one of the thing. He collaborated with the semiconductor. There was a clear communication. He said, instead of I placing the order and shipping it, why don't you have a warehouse and store it in Dubai? So there is no shortage. So that was out of the box.